Hey, what's going on, guys? Indie Pride here with Milk and Cookies Total War.
And this is Madness. I don't know if you know who I am, but if you do, then I'm happy to say I'm actually going to come back just for a bit to join Indie in doing the footage here of this nice tournament that we have going. And even though I don't really know a whole lot about Ro8 as of right now, aside from what I saw on this channel, I'm going to just join in and do the camera work, basically, like the old days. And, well, since some of you might be wondering why I haven't been active in, well, about a month or two at this point, well, two things. One was Steam being a real douche nozzle and deciding to minimize my games when I played them in was it full screen mode? Yes, I believe it was. So I had to disable the Steam overlay, and in case you have that same problem, which makes games unplayable which use Steam, just go to Steam options in-game and then uncheck all the boxes at the top of that tab that pops up. And that's an easy fix. You do not have to reinstall Steam and waste 2 hours shuffling game files from one hard drive to the next and back like I did, and you don't have to accidentally, by the way, delete your screenshots, your screenshot collection in the process like I did. No, it's a really simple fix. Well, and once I had that figured out, I actually noticed that my GPU was dying, so I took it out, tore it to pieces, figured out that it was hopeless, and got a new one, which is now a GTX 760, which is a lot quieter than the old one as well. So, yeah, hopefully you'll get to enjoy that lack of background noise in the future, since I do intend to bring you a bit of more content now. Okay, that should do it for
Good work.
my little greetings here.
So we are back into the tournament now, still in round of 8. Maximus Decimus Meridius on Gate and Aggony1Pain1Achilles on Armenia. And we're going to press play on 3, 2, 1, press play. We're already like 8 or 9 minutes into this replay, but nothing much happens at the beginning, and there wasn't really a point, I felt, in casting all of that. So we're going to talk about a little bit about the matchup now, and actually the deployments, which were very favorable on this map, actually, to Gate here, because he's actually going to have, it doesn't matter if he had been on the other side of the deployment zone or not, but he has woods in both, there are woods in both deployment zones, and this is going to work out. I don't know if this will work out well for Gate, but it's a nice starting position for him, because he really doesn't want to meet Armenia or Parthia or any of those horse archer factions out on the open plain. Even though armored spears are a heavily armored unit, they're good against cataphracts, they're good at surviving hammer and anvils and stuff like that. He doesn't want to be out on the open plain because, for obvious reasons, Armenia has the skirmish advantage. They have 6 Eastern archers, which only have 10 armor, so the heavy archers of the Dacians will kind of shred them, but he has 6 of them, and 6 is going to be 3 heavy archers. So he wants to kind of be Campomus Forestius Maximus here, which is really, in this case, is not a bad thing. It's a tournament. It is competitive. He's going to do what he can to win. I don't think there's anything wrong with this, especially because he has bow horsemen here, which are going to be kind of doing some skirmishing here. And the interesting thing, actually, is Gate in this battle is going to have the advantage in the horse archer skirmish. They both brought 3 horse archers, and the Gate bow horsemen have 40 weapon damage, 40 missile damage, while the Armenian horse archers only have 35. So they did do a little bit of trading earlier in the replay, and one of them's down to 47 out of 60 men. And it's just interesting because you wouldn't think that Gate, being a barbarian faction, would match up well versus Armenia or Parthia in the horse archer phase. But at least in this battle, he's going to. Of course, Armenia also has a bunch of royal cataphracts and some eastern cataphracts, but assaulting that position for Gate is going to probably be pretty difficult, I think. So there's going to be a little bit of just back and forth with the bow horsemen, just doing a little bit of skirmishing here, and I think Achilles was probably just wondering how he wanted to engage this, because of course Hillman and Axemen are going to have a hard time versus armored spears and mercenary axe warriors and the 2 noble swords of the Gate, which we can't see at the moment but are hidden in the trees. But pretty soon here he is going to be like well, I gotta do something. I have all the cavalry. I gotta engage at some point, and I know that I don't have the horse archer advantage. So move up and start skirmishing with the guys in the trees. And of course, the woods here are going to make it more difficult for the 6 Eastern archers of Armenia to do the damage they want to do. But that doesn't mean that he can't out-skirmish or whittle his opponent down. And even in these woods, I think cataphract charges could be pretty devastating if done appropriately. We'll just see how Achilles decides to take that engagement. So looking at this matchup so far, Madness, looking at Gate and Armenia, the positions of both players, what do you think about how this might progress? Do you think this is, I know obviously you've been away from the metagame for a while, do you think this might be in Armenia's favor, Gate's favor, or do you think it's kind of a wash?
It's difficult for me to say. I think it's probably in the favor of the player who has more patience, because this looks like neither really wants to attack, because obviously you've got this nice forest with a bunch of good infantry, or at least relatively good infantry, versus an open plain in which, if you come out as the Gate, you will be surrounded and shot on from all angles. So really, this is, it looks to me like kind of that, I forgot where the quote was from, but, you know, the only winning move is not to play.
Yeah. Well, no, and I definitely agree with you here, because if Gate decides to leave the woods here, what Achilles has done and what I really like is he's kind of created a crescent around the Gate army, and he has a bunch of cavalry on both flanks, and has kind of just created this half moon. And if Gate decided to leave the safety of the woods and move out onto the open plain, then it becomes very easy for Armenia's cavalry and hillmen and axemen and archers on the flanks to get around behind and completely close in and collapse in from all sides, and that would be really devastating to Gate. So if he stays where he is, it's a position that's very difficult for Armenia to assault, and again, some people might not like this style of play, but there's no question that Gate's at a disadvantage if they decide to move out onto the open plain, and there's really no reason for him to do that, because he has some skirmishers. He can actually take a horse archer fight, which again, I think is surprising, but it's just because Achilles decided to take the lower tier horse archers. If he had brought like armored horse archers or the mid tier ones, I think he would have actually had the advantage there. But again, horse archers have never really shredded. They don't really normally shred things. They're more for harassing your opponent than just outright killing units. So even if he had 3 armored horse archers, Maximus would have just backed up and he wouldn't have taken that engagement. So it looks like Achilles is finally going to make his move here and start moving towards the woods and maybe bring up some hillmen and some of the axemen. He has kind of made Gate show his hand a little bit. There were a couple of units that were hidden and now they're coming out. And of course, it's not a really big deal, but Noble Blood Cavalry on Armenia's right flank is going in, and there are spear horsemen there that are going to look to engage. And then cataphracts coming right up the center. Looks like they're going to charge directly into the armored spears and lay them out completely, and half the unit will actually continue on to some more armored spears. He did not trample there, and then the 2 armored spears are going to put up cavalry counter tactics, which is going to shred them, and he hasn't pulled out the cataphract yet, and they're starting to drop very, very quickly. So if he doesn't want to lose that unit, he'd have to pull that out pretty quick. Another cataphract was thinking about charging up the center, but decided not to, and now a bunch of the horse archers for Armenia are coming around the flank, and that includes some Persian cavalry and noble blood cavalry as well. One of the cataphracts, the Eastern Cataphract unit, has already routed, actually, and they're going to be... They're shattered at this point. They're going to leave the field now, which is not good. He didn't do very much damage to that charge at all. He got 20 kills on 2 armored spears, but for an entire cataphract unit, definitely not worth it. And I think he might be a little impatient with his engagement. I think charging spears is not necessarily a bad move with full HP cataphracts, but you have to cycle charge and pull them out. It looks like another royal cataphract is going to charge in now with the trample activated, and some of that's actually going to be into the back of his own axeman. And remember, this is already 15 minutes into the replay, so I think he did kind of get a little impatient here, but that doesn't necessarily mean that these engagements aren't going to go well for him, because he does have, I believe, a strategist general, so he should be able to refresh that cataphract and get them back to less, or basically lower their fatigue. Axemen and Hillmen not really engaging super well. I mean, they're fighting armored spears. They're not going to do a lot of damage there, but the archers out on the flanks are actually doing quite a lot of damage. There are a couple of mercenary axe warriors and other units that are getting kind of isolated, and this is the kind of engagement over on Armenia's left flank that he wants. He has 3 archer units shooting into the backs of these axe warriors, doing a lot of damage there. And in the center, Well, actually, all of his archers are doing quite a decent amount of damage at the moment, but he's going to have to pull back soon because a lot of his cavalry has actually died. The balance bar shifted a little bit more in Gate's favor, but he still has the... I think Armenia definitely still has the tools to win this, because there's not a lot of cavalry left in the field for Gate either, so if he kites well, might be able to do enough damage here, but without a question, he's lost a lot of his cataphracts, and that's bad for Armenia because you really need those in the late game to start doing the hammer and anvils and stuff to turn the fight in your favor. So what do you think of how this engagement has shaped up so far?
Well, to be honest, I was a little surprised at how quickly this whole thing actually took place, because I was expecting a more patient, as I said, and a more cautious approach, even though obviously no one had a clear advantage in terms of skirmishing. I still expected that Armenia would use his cav advantage, or his melee cav advantage, or at least try to use it a little more to whittle down the skirmishes of his opponent, as opposed to just run them into the core of his army, which is what he ended up doing, and that probably hurt him.
I think one of the problems here is that the heavy bowmen have 30 armor, the regular archers only have 10, and so he had 3 heavy bowmen, and of course Armenia had 6, but with a 30 armor and the woods, it becomes very hard to skirmish them down, and as we look at this, the general is actually probably going to die pretty soon here. Royal Cataphract, only 12 men left in the unit, going to actually pull through, try to charge into the rest of the archers, and another Cataphract is going to charge into this armored spear as well. But yeah, I think that the skirmish advantage was probably not, on the open plain was definitely in Armenia's favor, not so much when Maximus decided to take that hill, or the woods, because, again, it really nullifies a lot of those Eastern archers' damage. And remember that they need a long time to do the damage they need to anyway, so shooting onto the front of their shields into the woods against heavily armored units, not the best strategy. And it kind of surprised me because Pyramids is not a map that I normally think of that has woods, but... And I don't remember those woods ever being in the deployment zone before. They might have done a different orientation, like instead of north-south they did east-west. But either way, that ended up... Those woods really helped Gate out a lot, and at this point, Armenia has lost pretty much everything that he had. His cataphracts are basically off the field. He has one left, and he should be able to do some damage to the heavy bowman. But yeah, I think that he just got impatient with the engagement and was like, I don't want to deal with just skirmishing this guy in the woods for 30-45 minutes, because if he hadn't taken that move, if he hadn't decided to take those engagements, I think, as Maximus said on his YouTube video of this, they'd still be playing. They'd still be sitting there kind of staring at each other, so...
Right.
I think
it was that kind of situation, yes.
Yeah, I think it was, of course, a very ballsy move from Achilles to take the engagement, but also wonder if it was kind of like, I don't want to deal with this and I'm just going to fight you and hope that it turns out well.
Someone had to make the first move, and, well, it ended up being him, and apparently, the way it ended up, it wasn't in his favor.
No.
As I predicted, being a tactical and strategic genius.
Yes, of course. But I kind of feel for Achilles in this situation, just because he picked a map and he's like, Armenia, this is perfect. And by the way, thank you Achilles and Maximus Decimus Meridius for picking factions that have not been played in the tournament and not bringing sword rushes. Again, I understand it's the meta, but it's always nice to see a different battle, and this one was certainly very different than a lot of the games we've had in the tournament so far. Build from Maximus was fantastic. I have had a discussion with Panda Warrior and a couple of others who have said that this kind of build is one of the better barbarian builds to counter Armenia and Parthian. There's no question it is. The armored spears, very cost-effective, heavily armored spear unit that are good. If it had been on the open plain, I think that this would of course been in Armenia's favor. Again, I think I can't stress enough how important it was to have the woods in the deployment zone for Gate. It really changed the outcome of, or the kind of engagements that Armenia could take. If it was like Nemo to Chena, I think it might have been a very different battle. A completely flat map, no woods, nothing else. Really good, just in general, good move from Maximus with the spears and the bow horsemen. Very interesting to see them have the advantage over the Armenian horse archers. And then the Dacian heavy bowmen did a lot of damage themselves. I thought he had 3, he actually only had 2. But 124 kills, 119 kills, very cost effective. An interesting build that I think might have been good for Achilles. Of course, he was planning on it being a very flat map without any woods to worry about. If he had known that those woods were in the deployment zone, I think he would have brought a different faction or certainly a different build with Armenia. I know Maximus was talking about another build for Armenia being a rush build, and I have tried that myself before, having Axemen and Cartly Axemen as a main infantry line, 6 or 7 of those, maybe 8 of those, and then a bunch of Persian cavalry or a couple cataphracts. But normally you'll bring like 6 Persian cavalry to just very cost-effective shot cavalry to hammer and anvil once your Cartly Axemen engage. And I think that kind of build could have done extremely well versus Gate. But the interesting thing about Gate in general is that they're very, when you compare them to a faction like Boyai or Verney, like you know for sure what those factions are going to bring. They're going to bring cost-effective sword builds. Like there's no question. They're going to sword rush. Gate can do a bunch of different things. They have the skirmish builds. They have the Dacian heavy bowmen who are good at skirmishing. They have the bow horsemen. They have the mid-tier cavalry. They have a much more eclectic and wider variety of units to choose from, and that means their builds are very different. So they can do like a noble sword rush with Falksman support, or they can do a spear core like he did in this battle, which was very good against Armenia.
Well, you are sure good at just talking straight for 20 minutes. That's
Thanks.
impressive. I have nothing to add to that. Yeah. The army Achilles brought was very well suited for the open plain that he expected to fight on. And he didn't... Yeah, he just got messed up by that forest. And someone
really-
had to attack first. It's almost sad that someone had to more or less... Well, someone had to take this very risky assault to just have things continue. So, yeah, I too feel for Achilles. Yeah, sorry that you're out of the tournament, but... Well,
Maximus will move on to the final 4, and I think that both players played relatively well. I just think that Achilles basically just got impatient, and Maximus just showed at least in this battle, a very good knowledge of meta and some luck. Well, metagaming his opponent, just bringing an army composition that works well versus Armenia, and of course he had some luck with getting the deployment in the woods, the deployment in the woods. But anyway, hope you guys enjoyed. More battles coming soon, and we will talk to you all later. Indie Pride signing out. Peace.
Madness signing out. Peace.
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 Peace.